Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Abigail Herrema, and thank you so much for attending tonight's presentations. We so appreciate your support and attendance, and we really hope you've enjoyed them so far. So after me, we will be halfway through our senior class. So please enjoy Staying Alive, Fighting Medically Assisted Suicide. Imagine yourself in a hospital room. It is dank, dreary, and obnoxiously bright. A bed, a few machines, a singular chair, a window. The sterile white walls stared at the individual in the bed through its bright, cold glare. A steady beat from the heart monitor pierces through the blanket of silence in the room. You sit there, thoughts running, eyes staring, and your heart slowly sinking. The shallow breaths of your loved one gradually fill their unhealthy lungs as tranquil sleep graced their sickly frame. It had been a hard year for both of you. Health always seemed to dance around, taking one step forward but two steps back, never truly progressing. You wonder how long they might have to live. You think to yourself, should I let them continue to live in their pain? Should I let them decide when to die? Or should I choose a peaceful way out of their painful life? Dating back to the time of ancient Egyptians, medicine has been present throughout time in many cultures. As time progressed, medicine advanced. Individuals like Hippocrates, Diocles, Leonardo da Vinci, William Harvey, Louis Pasteur, and Madame Curie all contributed to the advancement of medicine, each in their own ways. Many new inventions, included but not limited to MRIs, CAT scans, pacemakers, and ultrasounds, have all conferred great advancements to the medical field. However, has each and every contribution of medicine truly been an advancement? In 1870, the first proposal to deliberately end a patient's life through medical means was proposed by Samuel Williams. Numerous debates have risen in the wake of this proposal. Modern arguments for and against this topic have not largely varied from their late 19th century counterparts. Throughout this time, the idea of medically providing means to end a patient's life was given many different names. However, they all have the same bottom line: death over life. For the sake of clarification, I will be calling medically assisted suicide, or MAS, the process by which a medical professional helps a patient die, whether achieved directly by the doctor or indirectly by the patient. Developing an instructional guideline for doctors to follow in regard to MAS is not my goal. Rather, we must identify how medically assisted suicide relates to the goals of medicine and man's rights in regard to death. It can be commonly agreed that pain should not be a pointless suffering. However, man has fallen, sin has entered the world, and death is inevitable. So when is it right to die? Should medical professionals provide means for a patient to end their life if one is in great suffering? It is of utmost importance that we establish when it is right to die. All humans will die at some point, although man can attempt to forestall death as much as possible through whatever means, he will in the end die. No one has yet found the medical secret to sustained life. What does it matter then if a patient chooses to die rather than live out a terminal illness or disease? Life is important, death is permanent. It affects us all. This is a topic we must all be knowledgeable about, since someday we will have to all make a decision similar, either for ourselves or for a loved one. Medically assisted suicide should not be utilized in the medical field for three reasons. It contradicts the goals of medicine, it is biblically wrong, and it does not stand within our rights as humans. First, what are the goals of medicine? The medical field seeks to cure, to care, and to comfort. The first goal of medicine is to cure. Although the body has been fearfully and wonderfully made, it cannot heal itself of every malady, but in some cases, it does a pretty efficient job. For example, surgery is a well-used medical tactic to help the body cure. In fact, according to the National Library of Medicine, it is estimated that 234.2 million major surgical procedures are undertaken every year worldwide. Humankind has been very successful in developing medicines and other practices to help the body heal, although the body itself does most of the legwork. The second goal of medicine is to care. Caring for the body includes preventing disease and illness while also encouraging the promotion and maintenance of health. An annual checkup is a common area of care for the body. The National Center for Health Statistics states that 82.3% of adults have had at least one visit with a physician or other medical professional in the year 2021. A reason for that high percentage is that people understand one of the goals of medicine to care. The third goal of medicine is to comfort. Most can agree that pain is generally not a preferred option for a state of health. Imagine a wisdom teeth extraction. Nearly 90% of Americans have their wisdom teeth removed. Think about your teeth getting pulled without any numbing prior to or painkiller following the surgery. Ouch. This is precisely why comfort is a main goal of medicine. Most would prefer to minimize as much pain as possible, thus comforting the body through medical means. Next, medically assisted suicide does not fulfill the goals of medicine to cure, to care, and to comfort. Think of a construction site. As the builders gather materials and begin to work, they realize that there is a pest infestation. They then destroy everything they already built and leave the site in order to solve the problem. Likewise, it is illogical to think that killing the body is a way to cure or to care for it. It does not fix the problem. Secondly, MAS does not comfort. Once you permanently terminate the body, there is no body left to comfort. Death is a one-way street. Humans cannot certainly know what lies after death. Are you willing to take the risk by unplugging the machine in an attempt to comfort your loved one? How can you know that there is more comfort in death than there is in life? Additionally, medically assisted suicide counters the idea of the physician's role as healer. The Hippocratic Oath is an ethically and morally driven oath taken by medical professionals. The primary goal of the one who takes the oath is to do no harm. Although it may seem to be a peaceful end for a suffering individual, MAS is harmful to the human body. Thus, physicians who practice such methods of assisted suicide are violating the Hippocratic Oath since they are no longer healing, but rather killing. Next, medically assisted suicide is biblically wrong. First, the act of suicide, a form of self-murder, stands in contradiction with the laws laid out for God's people in the Bible. God declared, "You shall not murder." Suicide is a type of self-murder. To commit suicide breaks the laws of God. Furthermore, for a physician to assist in suicide, whether with or without the consent of the patient, also breaks the law of God. As soon as they intentionally help someone die, even a peaceful death, they are committing murder. Furthermore, God detests the act of suicide because it is an act of pride and it is the destruction of his creation. MAS oversteps man's authority in creation. God is the maker of all things. He is also the creator of our appointment into and out of this world. Who is man to wreck God's plans? If such, what are man's rights in regards to death? First, what are our rights? Rights are objective, moral entitlements that all human beings have. As expressed in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This means that no person, cult, institution, or organization can justly take the life of any human being without proper cause. If other people cannot legally deprive individuals of life without just cause, is it rational for individuals to be allowed to kill themselves? This circles back around to the idea of, do humans have the right to die? Although there is no definitive answer to this question, there is one main reason why humans should not have the right to death. The right to death destroys the right to life. If people were given the right to die, or the freedom to choose death, this supposed right can and most likely will become abused. As already seen in Canada, this country recently passed a bill to support euthanasia and in turn the right to die. The definition used for euthanasia in this bill was the practice of knowingly and intentionally performing an act with or without the consent that is explicitly intended to end another person's life. Medical professionals in Canada now have the liberty to intentionally kill whomever they seem fit to die, with or without the consent of that individual. By giving people their desired right to death, their right to life is consequently destroyed. If humans should not have the right to death, then when is it just to die? First, the distinction is not between life and death. Rather, it is between living and dying. Johnny Erickson Tada, who authored the book, When Is It Right to Die, writes, "Dying begins when a person rapidly and irreversibly deteriorates, a person for whom death is imminent, a person who is beyond reasonable hope of recovery. Such people have a right to not have death postponed." When someone's body is already passing, it is not murder to permit their death. It is not wrong to let nature take its course. However, when the process of death is hastened by medical means with the intention to bring death sooner than natural, that is immoral. The right way to die is surrounded by family, a caring doctor and medical staff, and pain medication, not to hasten death, but to make it comfortable. A dignified death results from a life well and fully lived. This is not obtained through medically assisted suicide. Although MAS should not be utilized in the medical field, there are many counter-arguments to this idea. Topics that support MAS would include the ideas of my body, my choice, the paradox of suffering, and the purpose-driven life. First, some people firmly support the saying, my body, my choice. We can all agree that we have bodies. However, the ambiguity lies in the ownership of our bodies. Consider a potter who spent hours meticulously designing and detailing a piece of pottery. The entire entity of that piece of pottery belongs to the potter, not to itself. He is the one who created it. Similarly, our bodies do not belong to us. We are the maintenance team and caretakers of God's creation, including our very own bodies. Therefore, God's artwork and design in our bodies should not be destroyed due to rogue maintenance workers and caretakers. Rather, we should encourage and support the welfare of our bodies. Thus, MAS should not be legalized because it destroys our bodies, which is the handiwork of God, not merely something we possess. Secondly, there are some who believe that when the scales of suffering tip more heavily than those of joy and happiness, life ought not to be continued. However, although suffering isn't necessarily good, good comes from suffering. This paradox is life. Life is about reaping the good out of pain, hardships, and sufferings. Consider a weightlifter. He does not get strong by lifting light weights. Rather, he gains muscle by lifting the heavy weights and putting in the hard work. Struggling through suffering produces perseverance, endurance, and character, all beneficial things to human flourishing. In your suffering, you can still find joy and happiness. Furthermore, in the words of Socrates, a life without experience in suffering is not a life. Therefore, medically assisted suicide should not be allowed for those who are seemingly overwhelmed by suffering, because suffering is a key component of life that produces human flourishing. Finally, there are those who argue that life devoid of purpose should not be lived. Agreeably, life without purpose is like a ship without a rudder, drifting aimlessly across the broad ocean. A life without purpose would hold no value. However, the issue with this argument lies in the ambiguity of purpose. Purpose is not solely contingent upon the works of our hands. Our purpose-driven culture demands that purpose is found in gaining prosperity, happiness, social status, or also found in our occupations or hobbies. Rather, our purpose as human beings is to glorify God. That can be accomplished through means like occupations and hobbies, but it is not limited to those. God works through all people, whether abled or disabled, living or dying. Thus, medically assisted suicide should not be legalized because man still has purpose, no matter his abilities or disabilities or state of life. To conclude, medically assisted suicide is a process by which a medical professional helps a patient die, whether through means administered directly by the doctor or indirectly by the patient. However, MAS should not be permitted because it does not fulfill the goal of medicine. Killing the body is not a way to cure, to care, or to comfort it. Secondly, it is biblically wrong and stands in opposition to God's laws that are laid out in the Bible. God declares, "You shall not murder." Medically assisted suicide is a form of murder when performed by a physician, or self-murder when performed by the patient. Thirdly, medically assisted suicide is not within our rights, and if legalized, will lead to the termination of our rights to life. If man's desire for death outweighs his knowledge of his right to life, our culture will quickly decline down a slippery slope. What does this mean for you? There are three things we hold in common. We are all a member of a community, a citizen of a nation, and a person of God's world. First, we all live in a community. As a member, it is your role to serve and impact that community. Will you cheer the depressed, strengthen the weak, love the unloved, and serve the unneeding? Second, we are citizens of the United States of America, and as such, we are responsible for serving our country. Will you stand up against the euthanasia bills that are to be legalized in order to protect the disabled, the mentally broken, and the elderly? Thirdly, we are a people of God. As a person of God's world, you are a steward of creation and a defender of truth. Will you let God's creation be destroyed through medically assisted suicide? Will you fight for the defeat of death or in the victory of life?